Welcome back to Animal Crossing New Horizons. I'm dear darling, and shall we see what's going on our lovely island of Fawnhollow today, where we'll be talking about, as you can tell probably from the title, Godzilla, which is not something I honestly expected to talk about today. I suppose if you're new here, this is basically like the most subjective, it's not even a review, talking about, I suppose, the topic in general. I'm not recreating Godzilla or anything like that. I'm just sharing my opinions, and yes, they will be biased, and yes, they will be unfounded, and yes, they will probably be very disorganized. But I don't even know there was a new Godzilla film, to be honest. Well, okay, there's actually two Godzilla films, but good evening, everyone. Right now in Fawnhallow, it's 8:27 p.m. on Saturday, December 23rd, 2023. Sorry, a little bit of a pause, but yeah, I was gonna talk about Godzilla. Like, I didn't even know there was like a new Godzilla. Well, okay, no, actually, the Godzilla movie I did know about was Godzilla vs King Kong, which is coming out like next year apparently. But I also thought that was already released. I didn't realize it's still yet to be in existence. I don't know why I said like that. Doesn't make any sense. But no, I'm talking about. I mean, I don't actually know the official title because I think it's like Godzilla -1? Yeah, Godzilla -1, which I didn't realise this was what it was called, to be honest. The only time I actually found out how this it was called Godzilla -1 was during K-Side concert. We can actually go to one. Was during like not the end credits, but a bit just like after the end credits where they showed the title Godzilla -1, and I thought it was like a teaser for like an upcoming Godzilla movie or something, but no, it's actually just what this one's called. You might be like, how do you not know what it's called? Well, I didn't choose the movie we went to see. It was this one chosen by friends, and I also did not buy the tickets. So I actually saw, and because I also didn't know it existed, I actually saw no promotional art for it whatsoever. Hold on, we need to find a KK Slider song. Hold on, hold that thought. KK Slider song list. What is the last one we inputted to stereo? I'll tell you before I suppose I get into any spoilers or anything like that. But on the whole, it's like really good. Like, it surprised me. Because I heard from, well, actually, I heard like secondhand from a friend. It was actually I heard from a friend who heard from another friend, but it was like his movie of the year, and he was like, if you like historical dramas, you'll like it. And I was like, what? Isn't Godzilla? Oh, so KK Polka is the last one we had. So the next one we're getting is KK Robosynth, aka KK Vocaloid. Well, that'd be a fun one. I forgot what I was saying. Yeah, that kind of surprised me because I mean, the idea of Godzilla I have in my head is like this sort of action. I'm not sure flick's really the right word, but action movie full of just like big like monster battles terrorizing a city, that sort of thing, and then like the military come in with like the missiles or whatever, and you know, blow the kaiju up or something. And then I don't know. I basically think of it the same way as I think of like Transformer movies of that sort of thing. Like that was my impression of what like King Kong and Godzilla-esque movies were. But so it interested me to hear that. It's like, oh, if you like historical dramas, you'll like this. And honestly, he was 100% right. It basically kind of was like a drama. And it was like, no joke, really, really quite good. Like, I loved it a lot. Like, obviously, I'm not going to dive like too deep, I think, into spoiler territory or anything like that. But I suppose what I'll say, mild spoilers maybe, if you plan to see it and you want to be completely spoiler free, is it's about the story of a guy who in World War II was meant to be a kamikaze pilot, but then he could not do it, fair enough, and all that. And it's about sort of like his story of, I'm not sure if redemption is the right word, but more like understanding the point of life, I suppose, in the first place, and his, I suppose, vengeance and conquering of his own fear and understanding the right way to move past it and that, right? But it was like really good. It shocked me. Because I fully went in, I was expecting like an action flick of just like I find the concept of him doing a KK Slider Vocaloid song, I suppose, but entirely with acoustically sort of like tickles my fancy. You know, it's a very funny concept, I think. Yeah, I forgot what else I was going to say about this. It's just like really, like surprisingly good. Like, I guess now we're going to like all bets are off, like heavy spoiler territory. So, you know, click away if you don't want about 5 minutes. Maybe it's a bit early, but still. Like, I just like have ended up tackling themes and that sort of thing. I would say, interestingly, I found Godzilla the least interesting part of the movie. The most interesting part was definitely the characters' like journeys, I suppose, upon it. And I think it's even more fitting, I suppose, to be talking about the concept of characters, you know, carrying themes being as the greater priority rather than anything else. But I don't remember what I was going with. That's completely lost my mind. Where was I going with? Like the theme of how like Godzilla itself represents like the main character Koichi's like fear, that sort of like lingering idea in the back of his mind of like this failure because of his like cowardice, quote in bunny quotation marks. And I was like, his journey of overcoming it, how it always like rears its head, how the wife Noriko was always like a representation of like his hope or his like will and survival to keep on living, and then how it sort of like gets dashed, I suppose, and then like comes back. That's like big spoilers, by the way. I don't know, it's just like it's a really nice journey, I suppose, from start to finish. Like I don't know what else I could like possibly say about it to talk about it even further. It's just like really nice. It's just like really engaging. It's like interesting. It's like that's all I'm really saying. Like I'm trying to get like my thoughts together. Like what parts of it did I really like? I don't know, I feel like it's emotionally stirring. I feel like it's really nicely paced as well, surprisingly, because there is like a lot of jump cutting, I suppose, inherently within the movie. You know, it starts off at the end of 1945 and it jump cuts move years every now and then, but we're seeing the change, I suppose, of the characters and how they end up subverting things, I suppose, here and there is interesting as well. Like, I think one thing that really jumps out at me is the neighbour who is initially like really annoyed at this guy for even like returning back to the hometown because he was meant to be a kamikaze pilot, and she like lost her 3 children in the war, like in the like obviously there's going to be some heavy discussions, I suppose, in this discussion of a movie because there just is, but like in the I can't remember what town it was. It wasn't Ginza they're in, but basically she lost her 3 children in the war, and she like completely blamed him, just being like, if you just had done your job, if you weren't such a coward, then maybe we would have won the war, etc, etc. But seeing her own journey, I suppose, like progress as well as she comes around to it, where she, you know, prioritizes initially I suppose also, if you don't know, that the main character ends up taking in this, well, against his own will, to be perfectly fair. She just kind of like turned up as this random woman who's looking after this child in his home, and then like this neighbouring lady who lost her 3 children just was like, okay, you know, the children's life is more important than my own, I suppose, petty, maybe not petty, but well, you know, kind of petty vengeance, I suppose, against the main character in the first place. And eventually she's the one who like looks after this child and really cares for her, and eventually she comes to care for both those people, both the people as well, and it's amazing I suppose to see that the journey sort of naturally come about. And I suppose the nice thing about them being able to do sort of time skipping thing is they can allow this to happen over a longer period of time, and it doesn't feel unnatural, I would say. What else is cool? I guess I like the fact that his friends were all like really cool and felt like actual buddies that were there to support him, like his like work colleagues, I suppose, in his new job, because I felt like it would have been too easy to like for them to find out, oh, he was a kamikaze pilot who survived, and then hold some sort of resentment just like the neighbour did. But then it's like they've already done that as a story thematic or idea exploration, so they were just like, whoa, you know, he's probably seen some stuff, that sort of thing. But like they're all, not all of them I suppose, but 2 of them were like war veterans, I suppose, in their own right, so they know like the horrors of war, they know how scary it can be. And then like the main engineer himself, like him having his own journey, I suppose, with, you know, resenting this guy, and then eventually coming around being like telling him, instead of the fact that he should die, instead of telling him, hey, he should have died, he's telling him, hey, you should live with the ejectancy of the final thing. Like, I don't think there were any like story points which made me go, whoa, mind blown, this is like such a plot twist. Maybe the only one being the fact that Noriko actually survived, but that one I'm willing to give a pass, because it's one which I think, like, story narratively feels weak. It feels like a bit of a sort of like a rug pull out of nowhere. It sort of like lessens the impact of the loss it feels like he has, and it makes you sort of question, how do they not like find her at all? But it makes sense, I think, thematically, because, you know, Noriko representing that hope and that will to survive, and the fact, you know, him injecting himself obviously and actually surviving himself rather than fulfilling this like negative, I suppose, loop slash cycle of throwing away his life, ends up like reigniting his will to live. So, you know, Noriko comes back, and, you know, she only got killed in the first place because of Godzilla coming back and attacking again the second time. So that's why I say thematically it makes sense, even though narratively it feels a bit iffy. Yeah, I don't know, it just kind of like shocked me how like engrossed I was by it. Like, I definitely went into it being like, oh, I'm not going to be like at all interested in this sort of movie. It's just going to be like an action flick. That's really not my sort of thing. But honestly, I was engaged the entire way through, from start to finish. It was just like gripping, and I kind of love it for that. I mean, normally when I watch a movie, I go see like discussions about the movies, see what people genuinely thought of it. Let's see. Godzilla. I'm searching on r/movies. There's actually a Godzilla subreddit. That's crazy. 200,000 people. That's actually crazy. Godzilla -1 discussions. I mean, these people are already fans of the series, I suppose, in the first place, so they're going to be incredibly biased, I think. Let's see. Oh yeah, there was an interesting plan from the Doctor. The Doctor had his own interesting journey as well. An interesting plan from the Doctor to be like, let's send him down like 1.5 kilometers to give him like put him under extreme pressure, I suppose, and see if he survives that, then bring him all the way back to give him like decompression sickness, which it was interesting because I was like, that's a really creative idea in the first place. I feel like the obvious plan was from the beginning blow him up internally, because that's like what the landmine did, and it was well telegraphed, but the fact that he didn't see that, I suppose, is maybe perhaps why he was just like, it's not going to work. Because I think only the main character saw that, so I was like, okay, I'm willing to give that a pass. But that was a very genuinely creative idea to try and get rid of Godzilla, and it almost worked. It just wasn't quite enough. We'd have to do it like twice or something for it to properly work, which is obviously not something we can do. I definitely need to catch like bugs and snowflakes. Oh, with a duplicate blue rose, I didn't know that. I don't know where we got that from, but still. Chills all over, yeah. So I'm just trying to like read comments at the same time. But hundreds of thousands of pounds of force, that pressure was reversed and made his body re-expand. This is his body swelling up and bursting out, which is more damaging than his internal organs being crushed. Apparently the OG theme played with all the boats coming up, which is fair. Honestly, I don't really know anything about Godzilla. I also thought Godzilla was a woman for some reason this entire time. It turns out he's not. Because in my mind, I was like, Godzilla had babies or something around one point, which makes like him a mother, but he's not, apparently. We checked afterwards. Godzilla is like breathing as well. It felt that's the only part I felt was kind of weird. Yeah, I mean, when I say that Godzilla felt like the weakest part of the movie to me, it is true. Sorry, pause, but I don't remember what I was saying. I don't know, I was just reading reviews, to be perfectly honest. What else did I go at? When I say that I think Godzilla was the weakest part of the movie, I don't, okay. I think that's probably poor phrasing. What I mean is the fact that Godzilla was not very instrumental to this movie. What I mean is that Godzilla could very much be taken out, replaced with any other sort of, like, it doesn't have to be Godzilla, honestly, it didn't even have to be a monster, it could be some sort of force, I suppose, representation of fear, but like some sort of very strong force which threatened Japan, I suppose, and it could still work amazingly well. It was a very human / character-driven movie is perhaps how I would describe it. Which maybe that's why I made it so compelling. Those tends to be the sort of things I like. Lucky for you, that's what I like. I don't know if we're going to be able to catch, honestly, many bugs around here, but we definitely should try, because it's a 5 times option right now. What was I saying? Oh yeah, it's subversive stuff, like what I touched upon before. Like I like how it subverts the idea of, I suppose, sacrifice, and like what it actually means to sacrifice. You know, the idea of like a hero sacrificing, you know, Koichi at the end, sacrificing his life to save all of Japan and that sort of thing, which means he needs to have like this heroic death tied to him as he, you know, flies his plane into the beast's mouth. But I like how it subverts that with him just like jumping out at the end, being like, oh, you know, like what does it mean to truly sacrifice? Like the act of sacrifice, I suppose, is not inherently in the act of dying, but in the act of that of saving everyone. You know, at the end of the day, that's the important part. The sacrifice comes because it was an inevitable cost of someone's life. But if you don't have to sacrifice someone's life for it, why bother doing so? let yourself live. Because, you know, otherwise other people have to pay the price, I suppose, for, you know, your death as well. In this case being Akiko, and I suppose technically Noriko, but not like he knew at the time. This idea that, you know, despite the fact it would complete, I suppose, a cycle for him. I suppose it's him reevaluating that it was quite a fruitless endeavour to begin with. Like as a doctor, no, wait, what's the name of the doctor? I can't remember this guy's name, but the scientist person said in the first place. One of that was probably a hermit crab, or whatever it's called, right? No, it wasn't. That I suppose views towards it are very much changing. It was just sort of just like a pointless waste of like tossing lives into a never-ending void, and people's lives just being lost for really no good reason. When, you know, that again is not the meaning, I suppose, of sacrifice. you kind of see what true sacrifice means, I suppose, from like a parental viewpoint throughout most of the movie, as they all try to, you know, band together to help out Akiko. It's like, I like it because I felt like it was very telegraphed. I think things are well telegraphed in this movie, is what I'd say. Not to the extent that they felt blitheringly obvious. They all felt reasonably obvious, but still, it was like nothing really felt like too much of a rug pull, again, apart from Noriko. But again, this is my own personal opinion. It felt like it felt reasonable, I think, for things to transpire the way they did. And I think that was my favourite part about it, because I was very curious, because like obviously I felt like, I think they did like twice in the movie, it was like talk about X thing and then have it appear in like one of the following scenes. Like they did it with like, oh, you know, no ejector seats or something in the planes we fly now, then it's like, oh, you know, he gets introduced to a plane which never actually made it to usage, things like that. And it's like, oh, it's got like an ejector seat on it, as the engineer noticed, like this is safety measure on the seat. They did it again earlier in the movie as well, but I can't remember exactly how we did it, to be perfectly honest. And I was basically sitting there the entire way through being like, I wonder how they're going to do it. I wonder if they're going to have him, you know, sacrifice his life, I suppose, for the greater good, quote, quote, or if they're going to do something a bit more interesting and not do it. Which is weird to say, I suppose, because I feel like the general convention beforehand was like, oh, you know, the character stays alive because, you know, people want a good and happy ending. But now that's sort of becoming like a trope in of itself. It's like now it's kind of more interesting if he sacrifices his life, I suppose, in the end. Sorry, doesn't sacrifice his life. He lives all the same, you know. It's sort of like the valuation of human life, I suppose, transcends the sort of desire or reason to die for a good cause, right? It's like human lives should be respected, I guess is kind of where I'm going with it. But not something to just sort of like very fruitlessly, I'm not sure if fruitlessly is the right word, but very sort of casually tossed away. They hold a lot more meaning in that entire thing. And to disregard it, I feel, is to be disrespectful to every human. I'm not sure we're going to catch 2 more bugs in time, but I don't know, what else did I saw it? Oh yeah, Godzilla was like a very menacing force. I did think he looked a little goofy when he was moving out a little bit. Maybe that's just just due to the fact that he's, of course, like walking super slowly on these like stomping grounds, but there's not really much you can do about that. Is there really any Dano dragonflies which we can catch now? I don't know. Might be difficult to catch something. Because we're past 20 minutes now, but again, if anything, I kind of like would have liked it more if Kaiju was even not like an Eldritch horror, but like the equivalent of an Eldritch horror, like some unstoppable monstrosity which I couldn't even comprehend. Which I guess is kind of hard to do while also giving like an out to defeat it in the first place. So I feel like a pretty reasonable balance, I would say. But again, maybe I'm incredibly biased because I've never seen any Godzilla movies. Okay, you know, we didn't find any insects, but that's okay. I thoroughly enjoyed it. If you get the opportunity, go watch it. But anyway, I'm going to wrap this episode off here. So if you have been watching, thank you very much. It's been Animal Crossing New Horizons. I've been Dear Darling. Likes, comments, subscription, shares, greatly appreciated. Socials, Discord down below. Hope to see you again. But for now, it's our farewell. So until next time, bye bye for now.